The Blood Path.
Hello and welcome. My name is Oluwatosi Mugbadun Ade. This is Plant Path Podcast. Thank you for joining. Here is your number one place for conversations in education. Thanks for liking, sharing with your friends. We hope you do more of that. This show is brought to you courtesy of Plant Path Consult, your choice hub for trainees, news, resource development, instructional design, counseling, collaborations, and everything education. Today I'm excited. It's a book review day. We are reviewing the book Will by Will Smith. Will by Will Smith. The book actually starts with an introductory chapter called The Wall. Usually when people talk about wall, it sounds like obstacle, but that's not what Will Smith is talking about here. So in this chapter, Will Smith talks about his dad. He's called Dadido, Daddio. He told Will and his younger brother Harry to build a wall in front of his shop. He felt like the old one was already dilapidated, so they tore it down and started building another one. And then this giant wall, of course, they were children then. This giant wall never seemed to finish, and they just kept on building day after day. And it took him about a year. In fact, Will Smith just felt that what kind of father is this? Very mean man. Should have just hired people to do this work for him, and that would have just solved the problem for everybody. But at all, the father refused to do that. The father ensured that they did the work, and they had to learn the discipline of doing the work by themselves, which was quite annoying to the children. So this war never seemed to finish, and every time they had breaks, came back from school, they always just worked on the wall. So one day the boys were just complaining that what kind of work is this. Then the father just told them sternly that, you know what, if you keep focusing on this wall, it's never going to finish, and you just keep getting frustrated. But you know what you can do? Just focus on the brick in front of you, lay it brick after brick, and before you know it, the wall will come up. And this is a very instructive lesson for us, especially as it's a new year. Apart from that, people have goals, giant goals, dreams, visions, ambitions, purpose, and sometimes it can be very overwhelming. But you know what? Just break into simple steps and show up for yourself every day. Before you know it, you would achieve your dreams, and in fact discover yourself in the whole thing. And this is very instructive for us. And of course, eventually eventually they finished building the wall, and it came out very nicely. So that is the introduction. Let's go on a quick commercial break. We'll be right back for chapter 1. Thank you so much. You're back now. This is the book review Will by Will Smith. Chapter 1 is themed fear. So please listen to this attention to this chapter very well. Pay attention. Listeners' attention is advised. So Willard Carroll Smith II was born on this 25th September 1968. Note that he is called Willard Carroll Smith II. He is not called Junior at all. In fact, his father, Willard Carroll Smith I, feels that calling him Junior is demeaning. I mean, I want my child to be great, not be calling my child what they call it, Junior, and that's very important. The name we give our child is very important in our lives, to their lives, very, 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 very important. Okay, so to help us understand Willard Carroll Smith the second, let's talk about William Carroll Smith the first. That is his father. He is nicknamed Dadido. He was born at the edge of the Great Depression in 1940. Dadido's father, that is Will Smith's grandfather, he owned a small fish market and had to work from 4 a.m. till until late at night daily. His wife, that is Will Smith's grandmother, paternal grandmother, was a nurse, and she often worked the night shift at the hospital. That meant that Dadido spent most of his childhood alone and unsupervised. That's the reality of a lot of kids today. Let's examine how Dadido turned out from this, so we can also pick our lessons. Dadido was born and raised in the rough and rugged streets of North Philadelphia. This largely meant two things in those days. I'm reading from the book now. You either crystallize into a mean motherfucker or the old broke you. He started smoking cigarettes by 11 and drinking by 14. By 14, his parents just fearing that this man, this man, it seems like his life is just going to turn haywire. So they just packed him up and gathered all the money they had and sent him off to an agricultural school. They hoped that he would just learn farming techniques and basic handiwork, and of course all the discipline that comes with that. That's what a lot of people do. You see a lot of parents, instead of taking responsibility for parenting, they literally ship the child off to school and expect that magic is being done with the child at school. Anyways, it was a failed attempt because aside working on some tractors, he never really cared about discipline. He would skip classes, he kept on smoking his cigarettes, and he continued drinking. Remember, he was sent off to the place at 14, and at 16, he just felt he was done with the whole thing, wanted to drop out. He had a plan. He kept on disrupting classes, ignoring all the rules. In fact, he antagonized everyone in the position of authority. His plan seemed to work out because the administrators were tired of him and they sent him home. But then, not at all, his parents weren't having it. In fact, the parents told the administrators that they had paid for an entire year and he needed to finish the entire year before they could, let him out. So he was stuck, he had to go back. But on his 17th birthday, being a gangster that Dadido is, he snuck off the campus. He walked half a dozen miles to the nearest recruiting office and he enlisted in the US Air Force by himself. He literally, you would think that he moved from fire to frying pan, literally. But no, he actually worked for him. He loved it. In the military, he discovered the transformative power of order and discipline. He woke up by 4 a.m., trained all morning, he worked all day, he studied all night, and he seemed to have just found his lane. He worked for him. So with all of this, let me read a section of the book to you, please. With his passionate work ethic, boundless energy, and undeniable intelligence, he should have quickly risen through the ranks, but there were just two problems. He had a brutal temper and he kept on drinking. Will Smith's father, according to Will Smith feels like his father is one of the smartest people he had ever known. But when he was drunk or angry, he was literally an idiot. So I would ask you today, what are your own issues? What are your own personal issues that influence your life, that affect your life negatively? Anyways, back to Will Smith's dad. After about 2 years in the military, there was a day that he was gambling with his friends. He won all the money and was happy. But then he went out to get a drink and he came back and found out that his colleagues had stolen his money. Man, they got the wrong part of him that day because he made sure he was drunk and he brought out his service pistol and he just shot everywhere, in the air and literally threatened everybody. What was Thank God nobody was hurt during it all, but they just packed him and sent him home. That don't worry, guy, you are done with what you're doing and everything. So he went back to Philadelphia and got himself a job at a steel company. He went to night school and it was the discipline he had found in the military was already instilled in him. At least he stayed there for about 2 years. But then after some time he resigned and started his own business, which is quite a big move, but at least back then to for a black man to say he was going to start his own business. He started selling ice, repairing refrigerators and all, which grew into a big business later on. So let's talk about Will Smith's mom now. Will Smith's mom was born Caroline Ellen Bright. She is a Pittsburgh girl and was raised in Homewood, which was a predominantly black neighborhood in the east side of the city. She's called Mom Mom. Mom. She's eloquent, sophisticated, well read. She chose her words really carefully. In fact, she was one of the few black first black women to attend Carnegie Mellon University. So she believed that knowledge was the only thing that could, give you an escape in the world and nobody could take knowledge away from you. So according to Will Smith, the mother believed in only two things, in only three things. Number one, education. Number two, education. Number three, education. Can you imagine? But of course, she loved business, finance, sales, contracts. She really always had her money, and she was a very disciplined person. Like most women back in the day, she married when she was 20, and then she had a daughter. By 25, she was already separated, and she felt she wasn't doing so well where she was, and she moved to live with her mother. That is Will Smith's grandmother. Will Smith's grandmother is often called Gigi, Gigi, and she moved to her grandmother, to the mother's place, and found big opportunities for herself. Will Smith's parents met in the summer of 1964, so it was like the reserved lady meeting the life of the party kind of person. It was not like Will Smith's mother was shy or anything, but she just chose her words quite carefully, and she felt that it wasn't necessary to talk except he improved on silence. That's a nice perspective. But the dad was just that person that grew up in the wood, always had all of those profane words, just all of those wood rat kind of tenses and all. Then he was the life of the party. He was that kind of person that you get to the party, he has cigarettes in one hand, alcohol in the second hand, and then he could play guitar. He always just seemed to have his way around people. He was just, and he was quite successful in his own right. He had a business. So when they got married in 1966, they moved to Grandma Gigi's house, and then they combined their strength together. The mom worked on the financials and ran the office. Then Dadido did his work, did what he knew how to do best. Okay, so something happens in the family. The Dadido beat mom, and that impacted really on Will Smith. They had Will Smith in 1968. That's 2 years after they got married. He was the calm child, the playful one. He wanted to just please everybody and make the family work out. Dadido didn't even need to spank him. That kind of child that has an impressionable character. That you don't need to even you don't need to be that kind of child. That child already knows what when he's doing something wrong. He already knows that kind of softy child. And that was who Will Smith was. And then being the first son, let's mention that the both parents were married before. Both parents had a daughter before they got married. And funny enough, both daughters were named Pam and named Pam. So Will Smith being the first son, he felt that he should have at least stood up to his dad, or at least found a way to protect his mother from his dad's assault in all of those times. He felt really sorry for the mom and apologizes for that. And let's mention that Will Smith is not the typical child, like all those stories that you hear. He grew up, his parents were mostly together during his childhood, and he had at least both parents in the same house, and he grew up in a good neighborhood. They were in their house and all of that. Things were pretty much stable. His father was a present father, even with all of his father's flaws. His father was always present at his events, his shows, his premiere and everything, and that's quite an amazing thing to pick up even as a parent. So let's go back to Will Smith and his father. His father feels like Will Smith feels like his father created his home as a military zone. He really instilled order and discipline in them, which was good. I mean, they had good ethics and all and did well in school. But on the bad side, there was just always so much tension in the family because of the dad's drunkenness and his old temper thing. Will Smith learned how to read people's moods early in life, which he transferred into his art later. Let's add that I didn't know this before. Will Smith actually was a rapper before he went into filmmaking and cinema, into Hollywood. So Will Smith. One of the ways that Will Smith read people's mood was with his father's keys. Anytime his father came home, from the dangling of the keys from the gate, he would already know that my dad is angry or my dad is happy today. So Will Smith had remember that he's the first child in the marriage, in their own marriage. They had two daughters before, both named Pampan individually. So Will Smith has two younger siblings. They were twins, a boy and a girl, Harry and Ellen. They were born on 5th May 1971. Harry was the bold one that stood up to his father, something Will Smith never seemed to be able to do. Then Ellen's response to the old domestic violence and abuse in the family was that she kept to herself a lot. When she was younger, she went and cried in her room and all. But then when she grew up to be a teenager, she pretty much just detached from everybody and did her life away from the family. That's chapter one. That seems like our longest chapter for this review. Let's go on a quick commercial break. We'll be right back to discuss chapter two.
The Plan Path.
All right, welcome to chapter two. This is Plant Path where podcast. We're reviewing the book Will by Will Smith. Chapter two talks about fantasy. Yes, Will Smith spoke about his uniqueness. It's important to identify the uniqueness in ourselves and in our children, and then allow. We should not just grow as adults and forget all of those amazing things about us. We should, of course, grow as adults and still find a way to relive these our skills because they are essential part of our lives that people cannot really take away from us. We shouldn't even take from ourselves. So he used his fantasy and he had a wild imagination, a vivid imagination as a child, and he often used fantasy to move away from the realities of home, the domestic violence and abuse and all. His dictator dad, okay, that ran the house like a military zone. So having a vivid imagination also means that sometimes he confused reality with his imagination, and that actually affected him a lot. The kids in his neighborhood didn't take it serious because he always over exaggerated things, and they thought that he was a liar. And and really it's really important that we have a good awareness of our strengths and weaknesses so that we don't just fall out of balance. But his smart mom really recognized that this was something very good in him, and both of them played silly games together where he over exaggerated things, and his mother was to talk about how to kind of find the real thing where he exaggerated and where he didn't, which was very nice. Will Smith was actually being was really a simple child. He felt that there was really nothing big to him. you know he was just that simple child in the neighborhood. He was lanky, he was exceptionally unathletic, he got bullied severally, and he had no heirs to himself. He was just doing his thing. One, and he had, let's mention that he has very unique ears. I used unique, I didn't use any bad name, so that's one of the things you should learn, how to use very nice words to describe things and people, no matter how awful he looks. So people felt that his ears looked like a trophy. And for me, I'm like, why are you even yabbing him? Why are you abusing him because of that? Why are you saying bad words about him because of his ears? He didn't even have a say about his ears. Why yab somebody for something that they didn't even have any control over? Anyways, the top part for me in this chapter, I mean, a take home point for me was when Will Smith said that his best subjects in school were math and science. They were, because, and he gave, and I was quite impressed that, oh, he liked math and science. But when he even said the reason he liked the two subjects, in fact, I was wowed. He said that he liked math and science because they were exact, they were predictable, they didn't have mood swings, and you didn't have to tiptoe around them. That is amazing. Can you imagine how having that kind of dad impacted on his life? So let's go on a quick commercial break. We'll be right back to discuss chapter 3. Thank you.
The Plan Path.
All right, welcome to chapter 3. This chapter 3 is themed performance. This is Plan Part Podcast brought to you by Plan Part Consult. Remember to contact Plan Part Consult for your trainings, for your consultations, counselings, instructional design, research development, and everything education. All right, so we're talking about chapter 3 performance. So this chapter has about a few sides. Let's just get right to it. So Will Smith talked about his life as his childhood life in terms of three triangles. He had his dad that represented discipline, his mom that represented education, and then his maternal grandma, Gigi, representing God. They attended Resurrection Baptist Church, and in fact, Gigi was the unofficial, like she appointed herself as the leader of special events. She always planned the recitations. She always planned the special events, the Easter parties, and all of that. And of course, that means that if your grandma is the one planning all the recitations, from the moment you knew how to say your name, she just had you up on stage, always reciting something biblical or so. And then Will Smith, they took music lessons, funny enough, in the house. Will Smith knew how to play the piano, and Gigi was always proud of him playing it. He saw, so let's go back to Gigi. Will Smith saw God through the lens of Gigi. In fact, he feels that anytime Gigi was happy with him, God was happy with him. And if Gigi wasn't happy with him, God wasn't happy with him. Imagine how impressionable a child can be. You know, it said that a child will not always listen to what you say, but would always do what you do. So Gigi was a Christian, like a Christian to the core, you know, those kind of mothers. And she didn't just say, she practiced, she was a Christian, and she loved God 24/7. In fact, there was this part of the book that got me really, really, really like teary, kind of, that Will Smith and his mom, and the grandmother Gigi, they were in front of the house one day, and one homeless woman was just passing by looking all dirty, smell of urine and everything. Then Gigi just called her, asked her for her name. She said her name was Miss Clara, and then took her inside. Did not even give her refrigerator food though. Prepared a fresh meal for her. In fact, gave her a warm bath, gave her clothes to wear, and told her that God loved her. Imagine that kind of thing. That was a very good act. So Gigi she had grace, she was soft, she had a way around people, she had a way of, getting her way around people. She won't come with all the energy, but then you will really feel her presence. Anyway, so that's like the first part of the chapter performance. The second part about it is let's talk about Will Smith's school. So Will Smith's parents took him to a Catholic school, which was all white, except that they had maybe 3 or 4 black children in the entire school. Can you imagine? So it wasn't Catholic. He went to Resurrection Baptist Church, and then he was black. Imagine how the kind of treatment he got back in the day. I remember that he was a performer now, and he is a performer. So he just always knew how to find his way around. He told the right jokes at school. White jokes have to be nice, happy, with happy ending, and a little bit of silly. But back in his black neighborhood, he also knew how to, switch. With the blacks, he always had to tell rough jokes with revenge, a bit of violence and justice. Blacks like it when people get what they deserve. So you knew how to switch from these two personalities, which is good. But for a child, that can be something that can be a little bit, affect the psychology of the child when a child has to switch between two words. Anyway, so back to Gigi's school. Remember, it was a Catholic school. It was a white school, and his parents just felt that they were preparing for the real world anytime he complained about anything happening in the school and all. So there was a time that he was supposed to get an award for being on the football team, and just before the award they expelled him and one other white guy. But on the day of the award, they couldn't make him sit in front to collect the award, but the other guy, white guy, was there, and he collected the award, and the parents just walked away, and they were really angry. The father just said, we are done with the school, and that was it. And sometimes I see a lot of parents do this. They say, the good child, the school is good for you to make you discipline and everything. Well, there's that part which is good. There's also the part that we should be careful not to lose our children we should be careful not to break them. I mean, there's just so much a child can do. Sometimes it's not even about the child, let's be honest. It's about the child, the parents' ego. Oh, my child goes to so and so school, the socialization, they have friends from the school and all of that. So which is something we should pay attention to. The third part of this chapter is about the family. Remember the gist of Dadido always eating nom nom, always beating and everything. So there was a time that Dadido ate her and she was just done. She just packed her things and went to Gigi's house, which was not far away. She eventually even stayed there for like 3 years. It wasn't far away from home, and Gigi still studied, and Will Smith still saw his mom severally. You understand that kind of thing. But then when she left the house, Harry, being the confrontational one, kept on confronting the father. In fact, there was a day that the father had made breakfast for them, and Harry just had something to say about it. The food was not nice and everything. The father was just done with him and just literally yanked him off his seat and took him out, took him out of the house and gave him his bag. And Harry never came home. I was even wondering, I hope Harry is fine and everything. But Harry went to stay with Gigi and then eventually stayed with the mother till she came back after 3 years. So let's not think that everything was really bad at their household. Remember, the father had a heist business and all. Then remember that the father had a heist business and everything. So his father had a camera. Actually, when the father was younger, the father loved photography, but his parents told him to drop it when he went to that school at 14. So Harry, so the father, being someone that liked photography, got a camera and was always recording. The cool dad at the events that's always recording and telling everybody to smile at the camera. So anytime the father Davido made videos and everything, they just went to the basement. You play it on the projector and everybody will be happy together whenever they watched the what they call it, the videos, the playback of the videos. And in all of those videos, Will Smith always found a way to smile, have the wildest smile, photobomb everybody and all. And when they were watching, everybody would be laughing at everything Will Smith was doing. So he felt that, he had a way of interpreting things in his mind that, if he could perform well, that means everybody will laugh when they were watching and they will be a perfect family. And that made him to be a performer. He just kept on feeling that, if he could always perform, things would be nice, the family would be always together. And at least that's kind of made up for him feeling like a coward for not taking an action against his dad, or and standing up for his mom. So anyways, that was his performance part, and it affected his relationships, that he felt that he always had to be cuddling his lover, overprotecting them, or just trying to please them, as he has always done for other people. This is very this is something that really touched me when I read it. And the second part of this is that, yes, so it's true that Dido had all the discipline and all, but there was just one summer that he was so happy and he just took the entire family on a 2 month break. They literally drove all through the United States together and they saw the world. And Will Smith really could never forgot that trip with the family. So family trips, family times are very, very important. So yes, that was chapter 3. Chapter 3 is called Performance. Let's go on a quick commercial break. We'll be right back to discuss the other chapters.
The Blonde Pop.
All right, welcome back. This is Plan Path Podcast. Remember to share this with your friends. Your friends need to listen to this book review. Okay, so chapter 4 talks about power. Number 1, you realize the power of words. You remember that in chapter 3, Performance, we spoke about him leaving his parents, saying they were done with the white school, the Catholic school. So they enrolled him in a school that was literally all black. And his very first day in the school, he was trying to make friends and call attention to himself. And there was this other kid that didn't feel comfortable with that. And before you knew it, the kid was trying to establish his territory and punched Will Smith. Will Smith, when Willard Smith was punched and all of that, he fell down. The guy had like steel in his hand and in his arms, in his what they call it, fingers and all. And before you knew it, Will Smith literally passed out, and the guy went to jail for that too. So that evening, when Will Smith woke up and he was in a very bad shape, Gigi was there. Gigi is a nurse. The grandmother is a nurse. It's interesting how both grandmothers, his maternal and paternal grandparents and grandmothers are nurses. So that day, Gigi came to see Will Smith in the house, and Gigi now told Will Smith that if he had learned to use the right words and be kind, he wouldn't have been in the situation he was in, and that made him reflective. That kind of thing. You're on the bed and you're just thinking, I wish I didn't say this and things would have gone better. Another thing that happened in this chapter is how he had left his what they call, he's a performer. He always told jokes and rhymes and had good lyrics for hip hop and all of those kind of battles, hip hop battles and all. He always had nice lyrics. So he had a lyrics book. Being Dadido's child now, Dadido that is very disciplined. So he always wrote in his lyrics book literally every day. And that day when Gigi was leaving the house, she went to the kitchen and saw Will Smith's book on the kitchen table. She read it and saw all of the profane words he had used, all the swear words and all of that. Pretty much it felt like that was what hip hop was all about. Then Gigi never actually even confronted him or anything. But then Gigi just wrote a note for him and said that God had given him the power of words and nice what they call it, use of words, and he had a choice to use his words rightly and all. And that impacted on his decision. He just that day just chose to always use words to always elevate people, and that was a choice he made in his hip hop career. Side gist, Will Smith actually was an hip hop artist before he went into Hollywood. That's an interesting fact. I didn't know that before now. So back to words. So Will Smith was that hip hop artist that said that he wasn't going to use profane words in his music, and he got bullied and booed for that. People felt that he wasn't tough enough, he wasn't that tough black guy, he wasn't doing drugs and everything. Well, that all of those things paid off for him later in life though. Then because of his love, the second part of this chapter, because of his love for music and the way things were going, hip hop and all, he met a few guys that he was actually good with them, and then he felt that they should practice all the time, and he felt that they should always practice and everything, but the guys were not up to it. They just felt like they were doing it for fun, and eventually they even fought safe. And they eventually fought, and they left. They eventually fought and they broke up. The equipment they even contributed money to even buy together. When Will Smith said they should sell it to him because they weren't using it, they wanted to show their power, establish that they were the big boys and everything. It was everybody against Will Smith. Will Smith broke the equipment and ran away, and that was the end of their crew. So let's talk about the other part of chapter 4. It's about Will Smith's cousin Paul. Paul was a guy that was doing kung fu and had a dog. He was just a very slick guy, but tough and everything. He was getting into trouble, and Will Smith's aunt sent him to the father for discipline and training and everything. Remember that Will Smith's father had a ice company, and since ice is very cheap, he always found a way to have cheap labor. So he always called children to help him make ice and everything. Especially during summer, the children always came to him. They would work, with the father and get some money, which was a very nice transaction. The families felt that Will Smith's dad gave the children discipline, and the children gave him what they call cheap labor in return. So after Will Smith had, it was Paul that introduced Will Smith to hip hop to different music and all of that. So when Will Smith had fought with the whole crew, his crew guys, and he broke the equipment. So the car that Davido's car, one day they just saw Davido's car that all the windows had been broken, and because it was Paul that was driving it, Paul was the one with the car. Paul kept on apologizing to Davido and everything. Davido was like, it was all right though, that it's all right, that maybe some of the guys had done it, he had insurance and everything. But then it really pained Paul. And Paul went to meet the guys that he felt that they broke the windows. And he asked them, who was it that broke the my windows? And the guy was like, what are you going to do to me? I was the one that broke your window and everything. And I told you that that Paul did kung fu and everything, and he had a dog, a German Shepherd dog that in fact he was an attack dog, that he gives the dog commands in German. Imagine such a guy. So when the guy said they were the one, before you knew it, Paul beat all of them. In fact, it was like a movie to Will Smith. Paul beat all of them hands down in like few minutes. Of course, he does confuse and he has all of the tricks and techniques. But because Paul had broken Davido's rule and everything, he just ran away for his life because Davido would have literally killed him. And Will Smith never saw Paul till the next 35 years. What an amazing family. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 4. Let's go on a quick break. We'll be right back to discuss chapter 5 of the book.
The Blonde Path. The Blonde Path.
Alright, welcome back. This is chapter 5. Chapter 5 is themed hope. Okay, so remember that what they call it that was remember that Will Smith had left his other crew guys that he was trying to perform with. So one day, one of his friends, Judy, a lady, she was having a party, and this guy was a MC. He came to the show, and then back in the days, hip hop, you always needed to have a DJ and a MC performing together. So his MC didn't come at that time, and then before he knew it, Will Smith just said, "Oh, they should just work together and have the party," and they had a very good time. Before he knew it, they just immediately said, "Oh, they will be working together," and that was just it for him. Until date, he even thanks Judy for the fact that he met Jeff in her house at her party. But Jeff was not like those other guys, and in fact, leaving those guys eventually paid off for him because Jeff had discipline. He was 3 years older. He had discipline, work ethics. He practiced literally 80% of the time. They practiced every single day. They had their shows all weekend, and they always had work to do, which was very good for him. Will Smith said something that I find very interesting. He said, "We were seeking our sound, but we had found ourselves," which is nice. So both of them were always practicing, and they literally seem to have conquered North Philadelphia. Then something now happened in the summer of in in September 1986. So Jeff was invited to compete in the new music seminar battle for world supremacy. The battle for world supremacy was an old DJ and MC battle competition held annually in New York. Remember that New York was like the mecca of hip hop back in the days. All of the legends of hip hop had performed and competed in it. Grandmaster Flash, LL Cool J, Busy B, Mel Bell, and Mel and all of those people. It was like the Olympics of early 80s hip hop. So literally in the competition, they were like, there was the MC side and the DJ side. So he had like 99 rounds, and each round was like 30 seconds to quickly perform, show them what he's got. So Jeff, a lot of people in the 30 seconds, when it's 30 seconds and the buzzer goes off, they would just like be sloppy and everything. But Jeff was not like that. So the guy that had really practiced all through. I told you, yeah, he was practicing literally every single day. So by the time anytime it was Jeff's time, he didn't repeat anything. He had 9 different tracks to play in those 30 seconds, and he timed everything to be 29 seconds. So immediately he finishes, the buzzer will just go off. It was just a very nice thing. They call him DJ Jazzy Jeff, which is actually a very nice name. Anyway, so let's go back to DJ Jazzy Fresh. Okay, Will Smith is called Fresh Prince. So Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Fresh. So Fresh Prince, DJ Jazzy Fresh was doing his Transformer scratch, like this kind of scratch that was really very nice. In fact, so when let me read a part of the book that is really nice. I mean, it literally describes in one sentence how the competition went. The buzzer sounded and the crowd lost it. The judges were jumping up out of their seats and walking around with their hands on their heads. Of course, he won. It's like he had everybody in stitches, which is very nice. Discipline pays off, hard work pays off. So let's go back to a bit about somebody in the game actually. His name is James Lasita. They call him JL. JL is Jeff's friend. When Jeff was actually younger, about when he was like 5'10", he had cancer and somehow he got over it and everything was healed. So when he had cancer, Jeff's parents didn't let him leave the house. He was always in the house, as a child, and Jeff lived in the neighborhood and always came to see that's James, lived in the neighborhood and always came to see Jeff. So they were just very good friends, and in fact, James they call him JL. JL was a serious cat. Let me read from the book. He says, when I met him, he was putting himself through Temple Law School. He was studying during the day and working at the university hospital at night. He spent at least 2 hours at Jeff's place, part habit and part to unwind. Then he just literally just spent time looking at the unveiling of the world's greatest DJ Jazzy Fresh. So later he became their manager. He's a lawyer and everything, and he didn't do things casually at all. In fact, he's that guy that made them to start signing contracts for everything they did, demanded document, financials and everything, and he brought a lot of order and discipline to the whole crew. He was also the oldest out of all of them. Alright, so that is Hope chapter 5. The last part of this, which is something I find very nice as an educator, is about the family. So let's go back to the family and the schooling. Remember that the mother only cared about 3 things: education, education, and education. So mom had come back home at this point in time, and that our super most parenting mission for our kids was that they should go to college. That was something very important for her. So the battle for college started, and she kept on saying that she wanted Will Smith to go to college. Meanwhile, Will Smith had told himself, after the competition he went for in New York with Jeff, he just told himself that hip hop was the thing for him, and he wasn't going to go to college. So one day, he was always practicing it and everything. He came back, and his mother was like, what's wrong with him? He had been skipping classes and everything. Then he told his mother, I'm not going to college. His mother was literally broken when she heard that. And then there was like this beef between both of them, and Dadido had to step in. It was like the jury and the judge in between both of them. So he took mom for walks, different walks, daily, and then sometimes he took Will Smith for walks, and they literally spoke about stuff. He heard both sides. So there was a day he just called both of them to the kitchen and said, you know what, this is what we're going to do. We'll give you 1 year to support you, do anything you want to do. And then after 1 year, if you don't make it, you go back to school and all of that. And that was like an agreement they came to. When they came to that agreement, so Will Smith just felt that as much as his mother had like the best interest for him at heart, he also feels that E2 was right, but they were just right in their own perspective. They just had different views, and which is not a bad thing. It's okay to have different views and all. He felt that he couldn't take to his mother's advice because his mother had always known education, and there was no way she was going to advise him out of what she has always known. But then he felt that he had seen another world in hip hop that the mother didn't know about. So the father came to a very good decision, which was nice for them, and that's how he got gap year. So the day that, meanwhile, Will Smith had gotten admission at the University of Wisconsin. So he had gotten an admission, and the mother now called the school and said that, let me read this part for you, which is very nice. He said that my he called the dean and said, please, oh, my son wants to do something called hip hop or whatever it is, that I don't know what it is, oh, but can you please give him a year and all of that. The dean now said, let me read this part. He said, I think that is incredible, Mrs. Smith. She was like, what did you say? The dean was not like, for a young man his age, you would never get kind of life experience here. You should absolutely try it. If it doesn't work, he always has his admission is here, he can always come back. His mother was flawed. His mom was like, are you serious? So the dean also thinks this thing is very nice for him, and that's how, like, Will Smith won in that instance. So immediately after that, he won, and he was able to convince his parents. He was working at the ice factory at night, and radio was playing and everything, and he now started thinking, what if he fails in this thing, that he doesn't know so much and all of that. He had doubts in his mind. And then meanwhile, as he was packing the ice, there was like a radio show. It's called Top 9 at 9 p.m. So he always likes to work at 9 when it's like only him. He would just go to the factory, do his work, and go home and everything. He would have probably gone to practice with Jeff after school, so that kind of thing. So while he was thinking maybe he will fail and everything, then the radio host now said, number one on the show, these are new guys on and all of that, just hype them. And next thing, he just said DJ Jazzy Fresh and DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince. Before you knew it, the song was now blaring on the radio. That kind of thing, that moment of, oh my god, I'm not going to fail, I'm on radio. He was just so happy, and he just stuck with his decision that day to please give hip hop a try while the gap year opportunity was still open. I mean, this chapter is really, really nice. I like it. Different stuff to learn. All right, that's the end of chapter 5. So we are coming back to chapter 6 in a bit.
The Glad Path.
Alright, thanks for staying with us up to this point. This is chapter 6. Chapter 6 is called Ignorance. Actually, this book has 21 chapters, as we said. And after you listen to this, you have to let us know on our social media platforms, on our Facebook, Instagram, on our LinkedIn page, if you want us to do another episode of this book, because there are still other chapters to go. This is just chapter 6, and if you want us to do another episode to review the other parts of the book with you, let us know, please. Okay, so chapter 6 is ignorance, and at this point they started touring. It literally feels like his family presented him to the hip hop world. They started doing tours, and JL was the manager. DJ Jazzy Fresh, Jeff was there. They enlisted a guy called Omar and all of that. So they had recorded their first album after after DJ Jazzy Fresh won the competition in New York that time. And the guy they got, Dana just made them sign a contract and everything, and the record wasn't like eating the way they felt he should eat and everything. Little did they know that the Dana himself, he didn't really have he didn't have structure to his business. They were like his first artists, but to his credit, he actually tried for them. He did really well, and he did a good job with them, really. So back to back to the ignorance talk. So they started going for shows and doing world tours, and there was this Omar guy that also joined them. JL was like the manager, and the parents were at least relieved that there was an adult with them. I think he was 21, 22, right about that time. So let me read a part of the book for you, which you would find very instructive. It said, "We didn't know shit. We didn't realize you had to pay the bus driver. We didn't know that you had to grease the security guys at the venue if you didn't want your stuff to come up missing. We didn't realize that 1 inch on a map could equal 12 hours on a bus tour. People often say ignorance is bliss. Maybe, right up, not until it's not. We punish ourselves for not knowing. We always complain about what we could and should have done, and how much of a mistake it was that we did that thing, that unforgivable thing. We beat on ourselves for being so stupid, regretting our choices and lamenting the horrible decisions we make. But that's reality. That's what life is. Living is the journey from not knowing to knowing, from not understanding to understanding, from confusion to clarity. By universal design, you were born into a perplexing situation, bewildered, and you have one job as a human: figure out this shit. Life is learning, period. Overcoming ignorance is the whole point of the journey. We are not supposed to know at the beginning. The whole point of venturing into uncertainty is to bring light to the darkness of our ignorance. I heard a great saying once: life is like a school, with one key difference. In school, you get the lesson and then you take the test. But in life, you get the test and it's your job to take the lesson. We are all waiting until we have deep knowledge, wisdom, and a sense of certainty before we venture forth. But we've got it backward. Venturing forth is how we gain knowledge. Over the next few years, while our ignorance will rain down on a deluge of pain and suffering, when I look back, I clearly see it would have been no other way. The universe only teaches through experience. So even when you haven't the slightest clue what you're doing, you just have to take a deep breath and get on the damn bus. Amazing. So of course, as like what we read, their mistakes got sorted out and their discipline paid off. JL, that's James, was their manager, became an amazing guy. He was the oldest of the crew. In fact, he filled legal notepads with notes. He studied every single word during meetings with local police. When you're on tour, you go for meetings and all of that to know what was acceptable in cities and all. He spent less and less time going with us sightseeing, to clubs or to amusement parks, and more time studying the music business from every and any angle. Okay, so remember the Dana guy that signed their first album and everything, their first manager. So the guy was on the tour and he was always just doing things his own way and everything. So at some point, JL was just really pissed. He said he was going to get them a new management. That's Russell Simmons and Leo Cohen, at the Rush management. He said he was going to sign them under 3 conditions: that they will put DJ Jazzy, Jeff, and Fresh Prince on tour with their biggest artists, that they were going to hire JL to oversee their account, and they would teach JL the business, which was very smart. The guy is very smart, really. And then they agreed. Then Dana, they kind of recruited Dana. Dana was still in the old picture. He was still doing their business in the US and all of that, but then he didn't give them proper records, and he didn't give them proper record. Although they paid him a lot of money, he was still always throwing tantrum and referring to the contract he signed together. So those other guys had the new management people. They are quite experienced in the game. And then one day they just told him that, what, the truth of the matter is that these guys were actually, how old was this guy when he signed it? He was 17. Under the law in Venezuela, in Venezuela, he wasn't, sorry, under the law in Philadelphia where they grew up and everything, before you are 18, you are not supposed to sign any contract. if your parents are not there, and if you sign it, it is null and void. So on that basis, they just told Dana that he didn't even have a contract with them and he had to leave. And that thing still pays Will Smith because he feels like he's a nice guy and he didn't like it when people, saw opportunities and they didn't take it well the way they should have taken it. So that's how Dana just lost out of the whole game and everything. So when they were back from the tour, people in the neighborhood kept on saying that, please, oh, watch out for your back, oh, Dana is looking for you, probably hurt you and everything. And then his parents knew about it and Will Smith was angry, was always afraid. So one day Dana had the confidence and came to his house and drove to their what they call it, to their car park, and then Davido went out to meet him. That what does he want? He now said that if he wants Will Smith to, that Will Smith is in the house, and if he wants to kill Will Smith, he can go on. But the thing is that he would have to kill everybody in the house before he kills Will Smith. He pretty much challenged him, and which was very good. I mean, the military Davido is paying off, that if he wants to kill him, he can kill him, but there's nothing he's going to do to his child. Like his child has not done anything to him. And that was how Davido worked out. And that was quite a courageous act for Will Smith, because the truth of the matter is that Davido, Dana probably even had a gun, I would have shot the dad. But then he didn't do anything, he just drove off, and that was how, he just that was how he escaped the whole Dana issue and all of that. So, anyways, that's the end of the chapter ignorance. I know that there are lots of lessons that you have picked up from this, listening to this review, and you enjoyed it. Please ensure that you share with friends. We still have chapter 7 to 21 to review. Please let us know if you want us to have another episode or you would like to finish up reading up the book by yourself. All right, this is an amazing book. Thanks for staying with us all through this. Remember, this is Plan Path Podcast, your number one show. It is your number one place for conversations in quality education. It's brought to you by Plan Path Consult, the number one place for trainings. Contact us for your trainings, for your consultations, your counselings, your collaborations on your projects, research development, instructional design, and everything that has to do with education. We'll be glad to service you. You can contact us on all of our social media platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and lots more. We are Plant Path Consult everywhere. You can also reach us via email on plantpathc@gmail.com or call us on +234 80 63466 173 or +234 7046 308995. We'll be glad to attend to you. Thank you for listening up to now. Please share with your friends. Let's learn together. If you have a book you would like us to review, ensure you send it to us and we will carefully consider. See you in our next episode. Bye.